Welcome to another Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot breakdown. Following the recent balance patch, the meta remains mostly the same. Despite a new archetype popping up into Tier 3, there really hasn't been a significant change in the meta despite the nerf. Illidan was the only class to face this nerf, with a fairly minor change to Twin Slice. Players were heavily discussing what this meant for the class, and as a result, what it would mean for the meta. Despite the mana increase from 0 to 1 being huge, the additional damage that the card now has gives it the ability to pressure slower archetypes faster. While the nerf hurt Demon Hunter in a lot of ways, it can be considered a benefit in certain matchups thanks to the additional damage. As always, be sure to check out the full report over at tempostorm.com for a more in-depth analysis of the meta. Before we look at how this minor balance patch affected the meta, please be sure to subscribe to our channel here at Tempo Strategy to be kept up to date with all of the latest Hearthstone content. While you're at it, please turn notifications on. We have a wide variety of content planned for the coming weeks. Now let's jump right into Tier 1. Once again, Tempo Warrior sits comfortably at the top of the tier list. This archetype heavily needs to be nerfed if it ever expected to not be at the top of the meta. The deck is simply too flexible and has such a high power level compared to the other decks, making it difficult for non-broken archetypes to compete. Sadly, the recent nerf didn't touch Warrior, leaving the archetype to remain the king of the game. As always, one of the best matchups for Tempo Warrior is against Demon Hunter. While the extra damage on Twin Slice helps in this matchup, it typically doesn't change anything, as Warrior has all of the tools needed to prevent the Demon Hunter from winning the game. As for bad matchups, Warrior tends to struggle against Galakrond Priest due to the Priest having the ability to stall, heal, and out-tempo where needed. In the eyes of top pro players, this matchup can be favored for the Warrior, but it will require near-flawless play. In fact, most professional players agree that given perfect play, Warrior simply does not have an unfavorable. Next up in Tier 1 is Tempo Demon Hunter. The Twin Slice nerf slowed down the out-of-the-gate aggression this deck has, but realistically gave it more burst against slower decks. While this was obviously a nerf, it helped in some ways too. Clearly this nerf didn't change much, and although some players are hesitant to pick Illidan back up, the archetype truly is still running rampant on ladder. Tempo Demon Hunter has a great matchup against Spell Druid and can still take board hyper-aggressively early, making it hard for the Druid to mount a swing turn. The nerf does make this matchup better for Druid though, as things like Satyr Overseer and Glavebound Adept typically come down a turn later. As for bad matchups, Tempo Warrior can be horrendous to play against, but you also have a rough time against Tempo Rogue. Currently, the Rogue has enough tools to stall out the early game before creating a swing turn with either Edwin, Galakrond, or Togwaggle. While Tier 1 only has 2 decks, Tier 2 has quite a few more, totaling in at 6. As per usual, we'll be taking a look at the top 3 decks within this tier. Leading off Tier 2 is Quest Warlock. This archetype has been performing better and better with each week as players master the archetype. Sadly, no matter how skilled you are, you'll still whiff on your hero powers sometimes, making the game near unwinnable if unlucky. Quest Warlock has seen a rise in win rate as players improve with it, as the deck has such a high skill ceiling, truly rewarding the best players. Quest Warlock has a solid matchup against Galakrond Priest, with players calling this a free win at times. Barring an insanely consistent curve from the Priest, the Warlock can typically just play their own game of solitaire and draw towards their combo. One of Quest Warlock's worst matchup is against Spell Druid, as the Druid can relatively consistently build boards that are too difficult to clear. Once they stick a board for a turn or two, they can usually close out the game with a Savage Roar or 2. The next deck we'll be taking a look at in Tier 2 today is the previously mentioned Spell Druid. This archetype can feel fairly high-rolly at times due to cards like Breath of Dreams or Fungal Fortunes, but can be very rewarding to play. Sometimes cheating mana or summoning dragons or glowflies can feel really rewarding. Spell Druid is flexible and has a lot of different win conditions, but they all require you to ramp ahead of your opponent typically. Spell Druid has a good matchup against a few decks within the top 2 tiers, but the most notable favorables are Tempo Rogue and Quest Warlock. These matchups feel really favored for the Druid, and as long as your hand plays out, you'll typically be ahead. Sadly, the deck is beatable, mainly to some of the more aggressive decks such as Tempo Demon Hunter or Pirate Warrior. If these aggro decks have a good start, they can typically snowball before you get your mana ramp online, making it hard for you to get to your game plan. The last deck we'll be looking at in Tier 2 today is Galakrond Priest. This archetype can be really fun to play and really unfun to play against. Some people disagreed with us in the comments last time, but we promise you, we still hate playing against this deck. Galakrond Priest is a solid choice for ladder though, especially thanks to its matchup against Tempo Warrior. At the highest levels up, this matchup gets worse, but unless you're playing in top 100 Legend, you're probably fine. Galakrond Priest can make for some wacky game states, so be sure to check it out if that's your thing. When it comes to bad matchups, Galakrond Priest base tends to struggle with both Quest Warlock and Highlander Hunter. Both of these archetypes have solid game plans that line up well into the Priest and make it hard for Anduin to find a winning line. As we always do, we here at Tempo Storm want to arm you with a deck to counter the meta with in order for you to gain an edge where possible. Sadly, as the top of the meta remains the same with each passing meta snapshot, it gets harder and harder to find interesting decks that actually can beat the meta. We're in a place in Hearthstone's life where the top decks are significantly better than any other deck, making it relatively hard to gain an edge. As Warrior is nearly unbeatable, we've brought you a fresh deck that beats up on Tempo Demon Hunter to an insane degree. Control Demon Hunter, previously known as OTK Demon Hunter, is an insanely solid choice when it comes to beating up the other Illidan's on ladder. While you might have to sell your soul to play Demon Hunter, the win rate in this matchup is nothing to scoff at. By being able to clear the board consistently turn after turn, all while healing and pressuring your opponent out, you can really make it nearly impossible for the Tempo Demon Hunter to win. Fair warning though, this deck is very hard to pilot and will take practice to pull off, so make sure to get some reps in before calling it quits. A good tip that we have for most matchups with Control Demon Hunter is to use your spells to stave off pressure and send nearly all of the rest of your damage face when possible. While you are a control deck, you have the tools to race in most matchups while stalling the game out, so don't be afraid to be aggressive. The meta is in a strange spot right now, and it really feels like we'll need some intervention from Blizzard in order for it to change up. While they did try to make a minor change in order to shift things around, it clearly wasn't enough, and they will likely have to step in once again, be it with nerfs, buffs, or new cards. Only time will tell what Blizzard has planned though, so for now we recommend learning the best decks so you can gain a hefty edge on ladder. Thank you for watching yet another Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot breakdown. We really appreciate your support on this channel while we break out into other card games, but rest assured our Hearthstone content isn't going anywhere. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and to turn notifications on to be kept up to date. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.